A cadet's first year at PMC began with what was called the Rook period. Bob Schneider and Mike Campbell, class of '72, and David Eckerd, class of '66, explained the difficulties a cadet faced during this period, as well as the initial challenge of getting adjusted to a military environment. So what was your first impression of the school when you got here?
As a cadet?
Yeah.
Shock. Yeah, I would say
fear.
Shock. Fear. Yes. Yes, it was.
Trying to figure out why we had made that decision to come here.
Exactly. What did I get into here?
Why did I do this?
Yes,
how do I get home?
Totally different than anything else I experienced, that's for sure. That's right.
Well, could you go into that a little bit? Like, what was so shocking?
Well, they were very nice to us when we showed up. And then they sent the parents home. And oh my gosh, it was...
The upperclassmen just sort of took over as soon as the parents left, and the fun started immediately with getting things regimented and, get you into the groove. And
telling us how we were supposed to act as freshmen.
Yeah, I remember people crying, actually crying. Yeah.
The very first, the first couple of days was an orientation period where we got our uniforms, and the upperclassmen were pretty harsh. My freshman year, the September of 1962 entering class, it was the last class to go through the type of what was called Rook period that I went through. Now, the class of '63, which my twin brother was a part of, I know for a fact, because of his experience versus mine, that the administration, because of the enrollment issues that they faced, was trying to make the program a little more acceptable to students, a little less harsh, and so that there wouldn't be as many dropouts just on the basis of what I think truly should be called hazing.
Right.
But so it was a pretty tough period. I can remember one evening, for example, after we got our books, where we were told as freshmen to put all of our books in our laundry bag. And the laundry bag had to hang on the bunk beds. And we were told, put all of the books that are on your bookcase. Now, I had bought a dictionary and a thesaurus and some other reference books, so my bag was a little bit bigger than most of the other guys. But you wrapped the cord around your hand, carried it over your back, and then we went out into the quadrangle where Hal Hall is, Hal, Terrell, and Can, and we ran around carrying this. Well, I remember when I got done, my hand was almost bleeding.
They'd ask you stupid questions, and you had memorized answers that you had to raffle off at them. And we memorized everything. I mean, you remember what all the symbols of the ring, all the parts of the ring stood for. That one I was talking about before was, how's the cow? Remember that? That was the one question they always asked, how's the cow? He walks, he talks, he's full of chocolate.
That's right.
The lacteal fluids excreted from the female of the bovine species is highly prolific to the
Sir.
nth degree, sir.
That's right.
After 30 years, I've still got that in my head.
Jeez, man, I don't. I blocked that one out.
That's the one I remember.
I had to see a therapist for many years after that.
In terms of memorization, one of them that I recall very clearly was "How's the cow?" which made absolutely no sense. When asked by an upperclassman, "How's the cow?" I don't know if you've ever heard this one, have you?
Yes, someone has mentioned it, yeah.
But then the other one was, "What time is it?" And, "Sir, I am deeply embarrassed and greatly humiliated, but due to unforeseen circumstances over which I have no control, the inner workings and hidden mechanisms of my chronometer are in such accord with the sidereal movement by which time is commonly reckoned that I cannot with any degree of accuracy state the exact time, sir. However, sir, I can say that it is so many ticks, so many tocks, so many seconds past the X hour, sir." You had to do it pretty quick, or else you did 10 push-ups. So that's the kind of hazing that took place. But yet, I don't think, from a malicious standpoint, I think the concept was to try to teach individuals how to accept discipline, whether it's understandable discipline or not.
So So do you remember becoming an upperclassman and then taking pleasure in...
Well, that was the problem with doing away with the Corps, though, was because they started lacking off. They started slacking off on us. We waited 4 years.
We didn't get that chance to goof on anybody.
We waited 4 years to hammer on these guys.
It was pent-up frustration, you know.
I think that's what made us madder than them doing away with the Corps, was they took away our right to harass.
Exactly. I didn't get a chance to beat up on anyone. Man. Jeez. Come to think of it. No wonder I'm so frustrated.
Because students at PMC faced the demands of both an academic and military education, schedules were busy and free time was limited. This is David Eckerd, class of '66, describing a typical school day during his freshman year.
During the freshman period, we would rise and wash up. We would be in our day uniform, which was the gray slacks, gray shirt, black tie. We would be in our day uniform in time to go to what was called Reveille formation. It preceded breakfast. We would line up in front of Old Main, and we would be inspected typically. The flag would be raised, and we would salute, and then we would go in and have breakfast. We had our assigned tables that we had to eat at, and we had our assigned seat at that assigned table. And after breakfast, quite often a couple of us as freshmen would hang back because we didn't get a chance to eat. A couple of times we were able to get some bread that was left over and some butter and just put sugar on it, and that was our breakfast. So meals were pretty tough to come by. Academic classes didn't begin until 9 o'clock, and the reason for that was that on Tuesdays and Thursdays we had military drill out on the parade field. Either on the parade field, or if it was inclement weather, then we would have some other type of exercise. Lunch was not as difficult because I guess the upperclassmen were busy, as were we, with classes both before and after. Typically in the afternoon there were activities at 4 o'clock that would keep us busy until it was time to get ready for dinner formation, and that was our blouse, what I would call the semi-formal blouse. Again, we would be inspected, and we would march in and eat dinner, go back to the room, and unless there was some type of freshman activity, hazing type activity, we were expected to be at our desks studying until 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock. I forget exactly which time lights were out. In between, somewhere along the way in the evening, take a shower and get ready for the next day.
Jim Coey is the great-grandson of Theodore Hyatt, the first president of Pennsylvania Military College. Both his father and his grandfather attended PMC, and Coey himself graduated from the Pennsylvania Military Prep School in 1954. I asked him to describe the rules and regulations that governed his life as a cadet, and whether or not he found it difficult to adjust to a regimented military environment.
I did not find it to be onerous to be in a military school. I did not find it onerous. I had a roommate, however, that thought it was a prison, and he hated it. I mean, he just couldn't say enough bad about being cooped up and being a prisoner in the school, and he ended up quitting. I think at the end of his sophomore year, so he did not graduate from the prep school. But he couldn't stand it. But I didn't have that problem. Somehow it just seemed to come natural, to fall in line and do what you're told most of the time, and don't abuse what you have, because if you did, well, you're going to end up marching guard, and that takes away from your free time.
Right. Could you describe that
marching guard? Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, they'd you had to get your rifle, and then you just march around in a square. And you do that for hour and a half, 2 hours, depending on how many demerits you had to work off, and somebody was there to make sure that you were in step and that you weren't messing around. You were marching guard.
So what kind of infractions would get you how much of that?
Oh, tardiness was one thing, and if you acted up in the mess hall, that'd get you demerits. If your uniforms, if you weren't pressed and clean, or your shoes shined, or even talking back to an officer, or failing to salute. I mean, there was just all kinds of little things that they could get you for, and would get you for, depending on what their mood was, and what you were doing. And you'd think that high school kids with authority, that it could have been unbearable, that they'd have authority, but it really wasn't. It's not that you necessarily liked your senior officers. You didn't have to like them, but all you had to do was behave yourself and to show them the respect that they wanted and that they were due.
Do you feel like there was a sense of pride that made people want to,
Yes.
get everything perfect?
Yes, absolutely. I tend to be, even to this day, fairly organized and I probably pay attention to the things that I had to pay attention to in school. So it probably appealed to my nature, and maybe that's because it was in the genes and in the blood. I don't know, but that's true that it does appeal to some people and it doesn't to others.
Cadets received an important piece of their education through the military classes that they took throughout their time at PMC. This is John DeShaw, class of 1963, explaining the importance of this aspect of his education.
We had military classes every semester. That's where I got most of my leadership skills. You're put in some tough times, tough situations, and they made you make the decision. One time you'd be the company commander, another time a platoon sergeant, and another you're the grunt guy. And what would you do in each of those situations? And they got obviously progressively more difficult until between our junior and senior year, we spent 6 weeks up in Indiantown Gap, where we had about 27, almost 3,000 cadets from all over the East Coast. And they're real war games. I mean, you have ammunition, you have planes that come over, and they don't drop bombs, but they drop sandbags on you and flour bags and stuff. And then there was one time that we were up 3 nights solid.
Wow. Because
of maneuvers and stuff. And the non-coms, which were military guys, would play the enemy. And some of them tried to play games, but we had a bunch of good guys that could do okay. And there was real war situations, and you got evaluated, and you were ranked at the end of the 6 weeks. And why I wanted military, I finished 3rd out of the 3,000 cadets that were there.
So was that something that you really, it seems like it must have been a really valuable experience for you?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. It helped in the business world when you have to make some real tough decisions.
Huh.
Those tough decisions were relatively easy for me.
Every Saturday morning, military officers would make their way through the dorms inspecting cadet rooms. Ed Farrell, class of 66, Fred Lanning, class of 65, and Bob Newman, class of 65, told me about some of their more memorable inspection experiences.
I was living with a fellow, his name was Freddie McGinney, and we were getting set up for this inspection. Oh man, we worked with flashlights, cleaned the floors, washed everything, wiped everything down, took everything, cleaned it. Get up the next morning, put fresh sheets on our bed, put a white collar on the bed, which is what we were trained to do. Get underneath the beds, pull the racks in so they'd be firm. They wanted to drop a quarter, it would jump, all this kind of stuff. And the attack officer was Froggy, McCullough. And I say that with a very loving way because Jack McCullough is probably one of the finest people you'd ever want to meet. He came through, and he had the battalion adjutant was with him in the inspecting party, and the battalion commander. And they hit our room. And I want to tell you something, everything was, all of your underwear had to be folded 4 inches wide by 1 inch high. Everything had to be perfect, okay? When they finished with our room, it looked like a tornado hit them. And they couldn't find anything really wrong, but they did anyway. And they took our waste key, and I'll never forget this, turned it upside down on our desk, and punched the bottom of it so that the paint on the inside would flake off onto the desk. And he said, "Look at this, it's filthy," right? And McKinney and I wound up with tours because of the damn inspection. But what was really funny about it is they come in and they went through your room like a cyclone. They went out and slammed the door behind them. And you had to report in, okay, as the cadet in charge of the room that time, and they would tell you whether it was the upper or lower bunk. And I remember Fred reporting in. They went by him so fast that they never even saluted him. And somebody finally went like this, and he put his hand down because they returned his salute. By the time he put his hand down, they were back out again. Okay, and Fred was like reporting off, and they were gone, and the door was slammed. And he looked at me, and the both of us looked at each other and got hysterical laughing. We had never, after all the work we had done, this place was shambles.
But what happened for the inspection, you'd stand in your room or be in your room with the door closed, so you don't know when they're coming or what's going on. All you hear is a bang on the door would fly open, and they'd be there. So you had to be basically standing by your bed, ready to salute.
I'll tell you a good inspection story. Everybody was warned that this was going to be a very strict inspection, and that the word was out that everybody was going to wind up walking tours because of this inspection. And my room was really not too clean, and it was really pretty bad. And I forget what we were doing the night before, but we really didn't do a whole lot. I was living with a guy named Emil Romagnoli, and we were sophomores. And Emil and I knew we were really in deep doo-doo, you know. And I mean, it was so bad there was no point in even trying, you know. So Emil took a cigarette butt and put it right next to his chair. He had these two desks in each room. Each cadet had his own desk and a chair. He put a cigarette butt right next to the leg of the chair. And they came bursting in there, and I don't remember who was involved, but one of the inspecting officers just glanced down, saw the cigarette butt. He said, "Look at that. This room's not ready for inspection." Write them up, and they left. Well, room not ready for inspection was only 5 demerits. If they had stayed there, we would have had 105.
Hey,
right?
room across the water was 30.
It's like we really beat the system, you know.
But part of preparing the room was the floor. And back then, we paste waxed the floor.
On your knees.
On your knees. And after you paste waxed it, you walked around in sock feet not to mess it up. And the halls, too. I remember paste waxing the halls. I mean, that's the extent you went to. In my dorm, I remember we had 2 guys, one inspection. They historically would just not do a lot, and they'd come in late, you know. Like, we'd work all night, and they'd come in late. So we pulled a trick on them. While they were out, we filled the room with all the trash cans we could find in the dormitory. So when they came back to start cleaning up, that's what they found in their room. It was like piled up almost to the ceiling with trash. Another couple guys, these guys they'd spit shine everything. So one night we thought, well, we'll take a can of Bon Ami. We used to scrub things in the bathroom with it and put a cherry bomb in it.
Oh, oh yeah. Oh, there was always that kind of crap going on. Oh.
Hannah Campbell and Carol Schneider are the wives of PMC alumni Mike Campbell and Bob Schneider, class of '72. Both couples were dating while Mike and Bob were students at PMC, and I asked the women to describe some of the social events they attended on campus at the time.
Mike would pick me up on Saturdays at my mother's house and then come here to the football game. That was like a typical day, and the girlfriends would be up in the stands watching their boyfriends, you know, play in the band and march on the field. It was very impressive. A lot of times there'd be parents here. And then we'd go out to lunch or something, and then back to the fraternity house. And so I loved Saturdays. It was just a great day and a lot of fun being 19 and, you know, dating and just being in this beautiful place.
And what about like the dances and things like that?
They were nice though, weren't they? The formals were
the formals
wonderful.
I mean, you really felt, I mean, it sounds silly to say like Cinderella, but you dressed in a gown and they came for you in their uniforms. And it was, oh yeah, it was just great.
Most of the former cadets I talked to told me that, despite the difficult aspects of attending a military school, the benefits of a PMC education far outweighed the negatives. I asked each former cadet what the most valuable aspect of his education at PMC was.
I think the various benchmarks and the achievements along the way, which were individual achievements. Successfully completing the Rook period, for example, an award here or there. You know, what is it that it meant to me? I guess basically it's a non-academic part of education or life's experience, where sooner or later you begin to understand, well, I can achieve, I can get through this, I can, and I think that was it. I think that of anything, I guess the opportunity to have enjoyed some modest level of success in different ways.
After you go here as a cadet, there isn't a whole lot of things that are a lot worse.
That's true.
No, it's true. I mean, things in your daily life and that are not as big a deal after you come here. I don't know about Bob, but going here and getting the military training and all that has made me I can be very, very patient if I have to be. I mean, I can endure a lot of nonsense before I reach a point.
And I can fall asleep just like that. Anywhere, at any time.
I think that the military program here definitely challenged every one of the students here. Some more than others, obviously everybody in different ways, but you were challenged. In the beginning you may say, well, it tried to break you down, but then once you became a part of it, it challenged you to continue to become a part of it and to continue the thing moving towards its common goal. And I think that was an important part of my life. That, like I said, that you were challenged to be part of a group, and you had to hold up your end. You couldn't slough off. Like I said, guys that sloughed off, the Corps came back and corrected it. And I think that probably held good stead for all of us throughout our lives.
I can honestly say that what helped me in life from this college was more the military and discipline than really the academics. The discipline that you learn just helps you. It was just a few weeks ago, I was in my office and a lady works for me says, we're looking for something, and I had it right there. She said, you're always so well organized. Well, I learned that from being here, the organization.
Well, I'm 57 years old, and my closet is still just as neat as it was when I was there.
It's amazing, isn't it? Amazing.
Yeah,
you know what the most amazing thing I think is not only that, but the decision-making process. You have problems with decision-making. Like, people would say to you, well, what are we going to do? Here's the solutions. We already know the question. Now, here's 5 different things that we can do. Let's get it down to 2, and let's pick one. And if it doesn't work, we'll change it. I think that was a very big thing, that ability.
Well, I think that to reiterate what Eddie and Fred are saying is that the training that you got here was more like a mindset than a set of rules that you had to go by. And I think that basically in our lives, we were always the ones who would grab a hold of a problem, come up with a solution, and make it work.